Well, sounds good.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a couple of those, yeah, shows, galleries, stuff like that. I'm really interested in cartoon painting shorts, those strips.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I thought that was interesting. The website.
Which you can do.
I do.
See, that's too much.
It's like, something that you're not
That's really good. That's great.
Yeah, or, I mean, if you had, like, you know, luggage, you could share luggage.
Hi, is there a marketing loan house here?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, where's Dolores? Oh, okay. Are we on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we're registered to planning and development now. All right, thanks.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning and Development Committee meeting. It's Monday, July 23rd, 2012. We have a quorum. Alderman Nguyen will not be with us tonight. Is there a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of July 9th?
Move to approve the minutes of July 9th.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Items for consideration. P1 is Ordinance 69012, amending portions of the zoning ordinance for the Central Street Corridor Overlay District. The Evanston Plan Commission and staff recommend that the City Council approve Ordinance 69012 that would amend the zoning ordinance to create a sub-area 6A of the Central Street Overlay District that would allow consideration of a drive-through as a special use along Grosse Pointe Road. Along with that, in P2 is an ordinance amending the zoning map to rezone certain properties, including 2635 Crawford. And I'm mentioning that only because there are people who have signed up for citizen comment who are going to be addressing both of these issues. So we will take citizen comment now. When we reach the agenda item regarding the rental unit licensing committee, we'll have citizen comment for that before that that item is brought forth. I would. But do you want to do an overview from staff before you hear citizen comments? Okay, all right. We're going to have a staff report first. It's okay.
Thank you, Alderman. Dennis Marino, Manager of Planning and Zoning. Tonight, the two issues that Alderman Fisk just referenced, P1 and P2, are on your agenda related to the development or redevelopment of a abandoned vacant gas station site at 2628 Grosse Point that's been vacant for over 3 years. And staff has been trying to get that site redeveloped or revitalized during that period of time. Last fall, Edgemark Development approached the city with a proposal involving a Chase Bank development at that site with a drive-through. And staff, in reviewing that on a preliminary basis, realized that the Central Street overlay prohibited drive-throughs at the location. And at the time they approached us, Edgemark also had a 3-lot proposal, the vacant gas station site and the 2 residential parcels to the west on Crawford. And so those 2 residential parcels would need to be rezoned. The staff review, as well as the neighborhood meetings that occurred last fall, led to a staff recommendation to the Plan Commission to revise the proposal from 3 lots to 2 lots. The staff feeling was that the proposal could fit on those 2 lots, the gas station site and the residential lot to the west. Should also add that there's an alley vacation proposal as part of this as well, which is not on your table tonight, certainly. The Plan Commission began to hear the proposal late spring and has now made a recommendation in favor of the text amendment as well as the map amendment. Should the City Council approve the text and map amendment, then that would enable this development team to apply for a special use for a drive-through, and that would be heard by the Zoning Board of Appeals and then be brought back to City Council. For the Planning and Development Committee first, and then to City Council for final action. So items P1 and P2 are only the first 2 of 3 items as part of this project, all of which will be transmitted and considered and ultimately considered for adoption by City Council. So at this point, I think I'm going to stop and turn to the applicant, or you would like to go to citizen comment to this point, Alderman? Okay.
We'll go to citizen comment then. The first one is Megan Lutz, and you'll have 3 minutes. Someone give me time.
Thank you. My name is Megan Lutz, and I live at 2637 Crawford. Our home is adjacent to the single-family residential property that is the subject of this proposed map amendment. We bought our home 16 years ago with the reasonable assumption that the adjacent residential properties would remain residential. When we bought, there was a house and neighbors living next door. We certainly never imagined that there would be 3 drive-through lanes, one of them a 24-hour ATM proposed to be located within a few feet of our house. This development would directly and adversely affect the value of our property, our quality of life, and harm the residential character of the neighborhood. Our home is actually only 3.6 feet from the lot line on the side of the proposed development, so vacating the city alley would jump across what's always been the border between residential and commercial and bring it right to a residential lot line 3.5 feet from a house. City staff has recommended rezoning the residential property at 2635 Crawford on the basis that it is vacant and blighted. This property was bought several years ago by a speculator at market value. He then demolished the home and put the lot on the market for nearly double what he paid for it. It is currently on the market for $700,000 with a listing that starts "Attention Developers." The reason the lot is still for sale is because it has never been on the market at a price that is consistent with how it is zoned, R2. By allowing this rezoning, a message will be sent to developers that if you remove the house, the property will be considered blighted and the property can be rezoned. Our alderman has been supporting this development so far. When I spoke to him in April, he stated that his reason for supporting the proposal was because he thought he could get money from the developers for crosswalks near Lovelace Park and sidewalks. If these improvements are necessary, this doesn't seem like the right way to get them. It gives the impression that these amendments are for sale. A group of concerned neighbors collected signatures from property owners living within 500 feet of the proposed rezoning for a protest petition. It was easy to get signatures because of the overwhelming level of concern about the requested amendments. Almost all of the property owners that we spoke to wanted to sign and were clearly against the amendments. Many people told us that they emailed or called Alderman Tendem to let him know they opposed the change. At Plan Commission hearings, residents gave evidence, testimony, and citizen comment about how this proposal does not meet the standards for rezoning, including the negative effect on property values, incompatibility with the surrounding area, and traffic dangers. The Plan Commission voted 3-2 to recommend the project. However, 2 of the commissioners who voted for it stated that they had major problems with the plan as proposed, and Seth Freeman, one of the dissenting commissioners, asked to go on record as being adamantly against it, stating he felt it did not meet 3 of the 4 standards, and he explicitly wanted City Council to know that. He felt that it would set a bad precedent to rezone residential property to business. In these hearings, the Commission agreed with residents about problems with the proposed site plan and its potential negative impact on adjacent properties. 2 of the supporting commissioners said they would not approve the project if it were to go ahead as is. They stated that they hope the issues would be resolved in the site plan review during the special use process. The only other time residential has been rezoned for business or commercial in Evanston in the past 20 years was the Walgreens at Main and Dodge. In that application, the map and text amendments and special use seemed to go through the process at the same time. That allowed the site plan to be reviewed and conditions discussed before the rezoning was granted. We fear that in this case, if rezoning is granted, there will be less control to put conditions in place to protect the residents in the neighborhood. It would be wrong to approve these amendments with such strong concerns about the current proposal. During the hearings, the developers made the point several times that they could not develop the Citgo property that they've already purchased without vacation of the city alley and rezoning of the adjacent residential lot. However, at the end of the hearing, Edgemark Principal Richard Sapkin testified that they have already turned down numerous offers for the gas station site. So this is not the only option for developing the gas station site. This 25,000 square foot development is not necessary if the goal is to do something about the bladed gas station. We look forward to a business on the Citgo site like the ones that are permitted uses in B1A, but it is not acceptable for a large business to encroach into the residentially zoned area, and it is not acceptable to reverse the drive-through prohibition on the Citgo Sarkis and CVS parking properties. Residential to business rezoning should require overwhelmingly compelling reasons and no other options. There are other options in this case. There is also other available vacant, for sale, and for lease business zoned property in the Central Street area and throughout Evanston. Do we really need to give up residential property and to harm the character of neighborhoods to create more? If you approve these amendments, you will be endorsing the activity of developers and speculators who buy residential property and demolish the homes with the intention of having the property converted to business zoning. Please protect the rights of residential property owners throughout Evanston and vote against these proposed amendments. Thank you again for your time and consideration. And I do want to say, we do have a lot of residents here, and not everyone is going to speak, so can everyone who is opposed please stand up? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Christine Samuel, and then Joshua Huppert, then Carl Bova.
My name is Christine Samuel. I have been an Evanston resident and property owner since 1979. I live at 3614 Hillside Road, which I bought in 1992. I am opposed to the rezoning of the residential lot to business use. I offer 5 reasons why this does not need to happen. Number 1, there are other potential users for the one corner lot as it stands. The developer has said that there have been numerous other offers. This is not the only available solution. Number 2, a bank can easily fit into the one corner lot. Just look at the BMO Harris Bank at Reese and Central. Number 3, the 2007 Central Street Master Plan used the alley between the corner lot and the proposed changed residential lot as a buffer between business use and residential use. That plan is less than 5 years old. Why would anyone consider throwing it out? Number 4, Rezoning would set a precedent. Has residential to business rezoning been allowed in Evanston in the last 20 years? Yes, once, at Main Street and Dodge Avenue. One case in the last 20 years says that Evanston does not like this kind of change. And 5, most importantly, once the property has been rezoned for business, we will never get it back. It's permanent, it's irreversible, it's forever. The city of Evanston would need to have some overwhelmingly compelling reason to make such a drastic change. This proposed project supplies no such reason. Please deny the request for rezoning the lot from residential to business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Joshua Huppert, Carl Bova, and Allison Cook.
Hi, I'm Joshua Huppert. I live at 2630 Crawford. I live directly across the street from the residential lot at 2635 Crawford. So our houses are really in the same situation. We're both at the end of the residential R2 district. And in both my house and the one across the street, there's an alley next to us and then a business on the other side. The previous 2 owners ago of my house was Roseman Tractor, and in 1973, they applied to rezone what's now my house to turn it into a parking lot for their business. And at the time, they said that if they didn't get the parking lot, they would have to move their business out of Evanston. And the city, the Zoning Board of Appeals and then the City Council refused to rezone the house, and they said that encroaching into the residential neighborhood would damage the character of the neighborhood and the value of the other houses. I'm sure you guys haven't had time to read through all the packet from the Plan Commission, but all that, the minutes from 1973 are in there. I think they made the right decision. A few years later, there was an attempt to rezone a house just east of the CVS, and they wanted to combine that with the CVS. Oh, by the way, Roseman, they said they would have to move out of Evanston. They did 30 years later. They sold the business, and it's now another successful business, so it's never been empty. It's worked out just fine, and the alley separates us. 2635 Crawford, there's nothing unique about it. There's nothing unusual about it. It's just like my house and hundreds of other houses that are the last house next to the business district. And just like my house, the land is worth a lot more money if it's B1A than if it's R2. And, you know, I think that the City Council should think about the message that you send to future developers, investors, and speculators. If you say, and I know staff said, well, it's vacant. Okay, it's vacant, as it's been said, because the guy tore it down. The staff says, well, the Citgo is vacant. It's vacant because the owner, it's not abandoned, it's owned by a developer. They've turned down offers because they want to make more money. So if you send a message that you just turn down your offers and keep it vacant long enough and we'll rezone it, that's going to be going on all over the city. And I don't see how the city can say, we can rezone 2635 Crawford, but we're not going to rezone 2630, and we're not going to rezone all these other houses. If people find out you can make money by taking the last house in the residential district, tear it down and double the price, it's going to be happening all over the place. And another thing is that the Plan Commission, it has been said, of the 3 people who voted for it, 2 of them said they would not vote for the plan in its current form. They just, in general, like the idea of rezoning, but they don't like the plan that was submitted. So they wanted to go to special use, and they said, well, all these problems would be worked out in special use. But we've been going to meetings almost a year now. And I work evenings. I have to rearrange my schedule. It costs me money to come here, all these meetings, and they want us now to go back and start going again to meetings about a special use. And I think that's a mistake. If there's, after all this time, they haven't come up with a good plan, let's just keep the law the way it is. It's fine. They've had offers on the Citgo. Let them sell it. The guy who owns the residential lot who wants $700,000, he can, leave it there forever or get reasonable and let somebody build a house on it. But the zoning laws should stay the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Carl Bova, then Allison Cook.
Carl Bova, 1322 Rosalie Street. The need for the Citgo, Sarkeys, and CVS lots to allow drive-throughs does not seem necessary, nor the R1 parcels in particular to be added to that mix. There just doesn't seem to be a profound need to change an R1 zone for the benefit of a bank. Do we need another bank? What is the greater value that development, that type of development would have that would warrant the change in the zoning that's being requested? The need for a bank is an interesting question on its own. The Plan Commission has looked at this zoning change more as a single development than an examination of the need to change a zoning designation that will have the potential for other more intensive density than a drive-through, which clearly will encroach upon adjacent R1 character, whether that be now or in the future. The traffic volume for the bank, at best, suggests that an isolated drive-through within the changed zoning lots is not necessary. One need look only to the First Bank and Trust, where an attached drive-through, which takes up less space, is in operation today. The need to go to the extent to which this particular development seems to be going in the R1 does not seem to be necessary. Can it be worked out in the future? Probably could. But the gut reaction I have is, what's the need to change that R1? I don't think it's been established in the Plan Commission. Build a bank, but meet the existing Central Street code, Central Street plan. That plan was established in 2008, and it was established on the basis of looking forward, not looking backward, not looking at a recession, not looking at a boom time, but looking into the future and the wise development of the entire corridor. And this is part of that character that needs to be preserved along Central Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Allison Cook, and then Fernando Ferrer.
Good evening. My name is Allison Cook, and I live at 2721 Thayer Court. That's just up the street from the proposed development. And the statement I have tonight is very simple. I want to join my neighbors in opposing the proposed zoning amendments. I object to the encroachment of commercial development into our residential neighborhood. And the reason drive-throughs are currently prohibited in our neighborhood is because we don't want them. Please, please vote against these amendments. And thank you for your time.
Fernando Ferrer, and finally on this topic is Aaron Wolfsinger.
Good evening. I am against the current Chase Bank proposal. I'm against having a dangerous drive-through across the street from my house. I should make it clear that I live exactly across the street from the empty lot at the moment, and my driveway would be basically almost directly across the street from the proposed entrance and exit that this proposal is asking for. And one of the things that my wife and I have been worrying about is exiting onto Crawford from my driveway. Now, I know that I chose to live on what we call a busy street, but I did buy in a residential neighborhood. It is a residential neighborhood. It's a busy street in a residential neighborhood. Reversing onto Crawford is very tricky, and there's an art to it. By first of all rezoning residential lot, which at the time is, right now, it's beautiful green lot, and putting tons of cement concrete and adding a drive-through, which will be 24 hours a day, we just don't know how we're going to pull out of our driveway. It's as simple as that. I've got 2 little girls in my back seat, and if we're going to add 800 cars exiting and entering basically directly across the street from my house, it's going to be very difficult. There's certain things that the traffic study didn't look at, and that was the effect of the neighbors, especially my house. I know this isn't about me, but I do have a house there, and I do have a driveway that I have to pull out of every day. If there's a left turn going into the bank, and last time they said that they would not eliminate parking. So if there's parking in front of my house and there's cars parked and there's a car trying to take a left, where are these cars going? How are they going around the person taking a left? It all basically comes down to the rezoning of the residential property. I'm against it. Most of the neighbors are against it. These are people that live right there. We live right there. We walk past this area every day. And just a quick comment, with full respect to Edgemark, I believe is their name. They have not been taking care of their lot, which is the Sicko lot to begin with. Just last month, the grass was almost 4 feet high, and a bunch of us had to call 311 and try to get this grass cut. There's broken bottles of wine there. There's leaves from 2006 still there. The lot is a mess. Now, I know that's irrelevant to what we're talking about, but it does say a lot about the developers who are, playing with the neighbors, basically they're playing with their neighborhood in an effort to, make their millions, and to put a bank where nobody wants it. Nobody wants the bank there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Aaron?
Hello, my name is Aaron Knopfsinger. I live at 3501 Hillside Road, which is the first neighborhood as you make a left if you were to head north on Crawford Avenue. So I want to speak a little bit about the character of the neighborhood. So I think our biggest concern is just overall safety for children, for mothers, kids, families trying to get to Loveless Park, to get in and out of our neighborhood, which is right there where they're proposing these drive-throughs to exit. Right now on Hillside Road, there are over 20 kids under the age of 8. I have 2 daughters there across the street, friends of mine, 2 daughters, Fernando who just spoke, 2 daughters, and we're talking 4-year-old, 2-year-old kids that are gonna grow up in this neighborhood. And to have it developed and turned into something that is dangerous. We've been told there'll be 450 cars a day coming in and out because of these drive-throughs, shooting down Crawford from Wilmette, Winnetka, because it's a nice vein, a nice thread. And being at so close to homes where there are kids, in such a great neighborhood where it's affordable for people like me to raise a family in the Willard School District, and start just building and expanding on that is just a bad idea, And I think when we first heard about this proposal, it was huge. It was 3 lots, and what they did is they took that same footprint and now made it on 2 lots. Is it better? Sure. But is it enough? I mean, does it fit with the character of our neighborhood? And I think you've heard a lot of people say, why don't we get a 1-lot solution on the Sicko lot? Or why don't we really shrink this thing down? And I think that precedent of residential property and rezoning is where we have to, draw that line in the sand and say, you guys can build here, but you can't cross into these neighborhoods. And this little pocket up there, it's a special place. And you'll go any summer day and you'll see hundreds of kids outside riding bikes, trying to get across Crawford to, get to Loveless Park, which is a beautiful place. And the thought of 800 more opportunities a day for accidents to happen at that corner, because 400 cars in, 400 cars out, crazy left turns, curves in the road, all the stuff that goes on at this weird 6-corner intersection. I see accidents monthly, almost. I think after I came out of the last meeting, I came home and a car had been T-boned and someone was carried out in an ambulance. And I've lived there 4 years and I've seen congestion grow and grow and grow. And I think it's important for all of us to understand that You know, if we let 4 drive-through lanes or 3 drive-through lanes, which is the proposal now, be in a place where there's bike traffic, kid traffic, stroller traffic, I'd like my kids to be able to, you know, get to Willard on their own, and I don't want to fear for their lives crossing a street, getting past that stuff. So that's the first concern. You know, obviously congestion in the area has really grown quite a bit, and it's getting busier and busier, and I think it's really important that the proposal as it is not safe, and we need to figure out how to make that safe. And not wait, let this go through and drag this on and, you know, figure out the logistics of it. Let's all agree upon what's the right way to do it, because there is no turning back. Once it's rezoned, then we just have to work with what we have. And I think this is the best opportunity for us to make sure what's there is safe. Should there be exits onto Crawford at all? Should it all be maintained in one area? That's all debatable. We can figure it out. 24 hours a day, light, signage, all that stuff. That's terrible. You know, if you live in a residential neighborhood and you're going to have car traffic, car stereos, especially for Megan and Clark, I mean, their dining room window is right here, and they want to put the drive-throughs like 5 feet away. I mean, it's ludicrous. It really, if you guys take a stroll over there and you could see the curves and thinking of how the cars are going to circulate around there, and any given Friday, cars are backed up past Old Glenview Road. It's packed, it's congested. Drive-throughs, honestly, are my biggest concern. I think if we did it correct and got it on that corner lot, everybody in that community would be really happy. I know that, you know, Chase does a lot of work talking about how now you can go to the bank without going to the bank. And I'm wondering about the validity of drive-throughs in 5 years. So I could deposit checks with my mobile phone. You can sign up for business checking, and they'll give you a scanner so you can scan in your checks. You don't even have to go to the bank anymore. So in 5 years, do we really think that those drive-throughs that sit on that residential lot will still be there? Or will Chase turn it into something else? Or will Edgemark sell it to somebody else? Big corporation, just take over that lot. Once they own that property, it's theirs to do what they want with it. And drive-throughs are not going to be around for 5 years. I mean, we're smart people. Technology is advancing pretty rapidly when it turns into check deposits. So encouraging on a neighborhood, endangering, if someone gets killed, it's going to be terrible. And then the idea for all of something that's not even going to be worth anything in 5-10 years because there's no reason for drive-throughs anymore, it just seems like it's not the most logical thing to do with that property. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now we'll hear from the developer.
Members of the committee, Scott Borstein from the Law Office of Neal and Leroy here on behalf of the applicant. To begin with, I really just want to again clarify what the two applications are before you tonight. The first one is a text amendment which would remove the prohibition against drive-throughs for a particular area of this overlay district. All it would do is remove the prohibition. It doesn't approve the drive-through. The drive-throughs would have to come back as a special use application before the zoning Board of Appeals and then again to the City Council. So there's no specific drive-through proposal before you this evening. It's just the amendment to allow it in this area. The second one is the map amendment. And again, what we're seeking is changing an R2 district to a B1A zoning district for the purpose of allowing this proposed bank development. I know that's been mentioned, but just for the record, I want to incorporate all the records of the Plan Commission various hearings. The first one happened on October 26th, then on November 9th, then on December 14th, all in 2011, and then we came back in February 8th, March 14th, April 11th, May 9th, and June 20th, all of 2012. So I just want to make sure all those findings and conclusions of the Plan Commission, which did support the project, are incorporated in the record today. Before we call our witnesses, I want to address one issue that I keep hearing from the neighbors, which is this idea that the rezoning is going to set a precedent, and there's going to be this proliferation of rezonings throughout Evanston. As you know, each proposed amendment is unique. It has its own set of facts, it's site-specific, and is evaluated on its own merits. And as a result, it does not set a precedent for any other case. It was already mentioned here this evening that there was a rezoning at Main and Dodge for a Walgreens. That action and that approval of that rezoning has no bearing on the case before you today. We are not relying on that for any kind of precedent other than what it does show you is it does have presents or allows us to show you evidence of what happened to appraised values of property adjacent to that. But other than that, in terms of the rezoning itself, there is no precedent. So what you do here today is just about this case and not about anything else that may happen in Evanston now or in the future. Again, in terms of that Walgreens case at Main and Dodge, a lot of people have said that Evanston stands for the principle of not rezoning, and is when we asked the staff about how many actual rezoning applications there have been in the past 10 or 15 years, they could only cite to the one case. So I think it should be clear that it's not that Evanston is necessarily against rezonings. They're not applied for very often. It's a rare circumstance. And it should, if it's a rare circumstance, it has to meet the standards that you've set forth in terms of your zoning ordinance. It's not that there is some policy in Evanston that you do not allow rezonings. The rezonings have to meet the standards. We believe this particular case does meet the standards, and to that end, I'd like to call our witnesses who can go through the various evidence, again, which would establish that we do meet those standards. The first person I'd like to call is Richard Sapkin from Edgemark, who can run through the specific proposal.
Where's the clicker? Is this? Is this it? Excuse me while I get situated here. Thank you. I'm going to run through the proposal again. My name is Richard Sapkin. I'm with Edgemark Development. I'd like to thank the Planning Committee for the opportunity and consideration for this proposal. As Scott Borstein has pointed out, we have spent a considerable amount of time working with staff. We, as it was mentioned, we started with 3 parcels. We're down to 2. I think before I start on this, there's a couple things I'd like to mention. One is the question of why we're asking for this amendment, and I hope that when I go through this presentation that it will help shed some light on it. This is a very good residential/retail kind of mixed-use trade area, and there has been limited redevelopment, if any. I think there are 2 types of obsolescence that occur in real estate as we've seen over the years. And one is economic obsolescence, which I do not believe has occurred here. The next is physical obsolescence, and I think that has occurred. The gas station is old. I've heard people say that we have other users. The question that was asked to me at one of the last hearings was, have you had any other gas stations interested? And the answer was yes, we've had gas stations. But the size of the lot is only 11,000 square feet, which makes it very difficult in today's environment to develop. The configuration is just small. Let me say that we believe that this is a viable development. We think it meets all of the codes and criteria for the city of Evanston, and that we think it's something that benefits the neighbors. So let me start with presentation. Everyone has seen the current gas station. We've actually painted it, so some of the pictures are a little older. Let me go back to this. When we purchased the gas station, it was purchased from the bank, and this was a condition that we were able to do it. We absolutely purchased this with the intention of redeveloping the site. I don't think anyone would argue the current condition is less than desirable and doesn't meet the criteria what the city of Evanston or the neighbors would like. As we began to research what the development opportunities were, we looked at the lot to the north. Vacant, we understand that. It is also, there is no longer a fence there, by the way, but it is also a odd configured site. This will give you a little idea. Is there a pointer? Oh, there it is. Sorry, I'm trying to use your device here. I'm not doing it very well. What do I do? Oh, you have this one. So I wasn't really doing it. I thought I was, see, I thought I was operating it, and I wasn't. I'm a developer. I'm not a presentation person, I guess. So you see the Citgo parcel right there, and then you see the lot. And what we're trying to do is incorporate it inside with this parcel, as you know. You see the other development that's currently in place. I don't think I need to go through all of it. You can see it's a commercial development. We will address all of the issues about traffic and safety, because I think that we have proven through our studies and through history that this site actually does not become any less safe. If anything, probably becomes more safe with our redevelopment. In making a presentation for both the text and plat amendment, we have been working with site plan designs. And I want everyone to understand that we know, as a developer, as the applicant, that we have many different layers, if you will, processes to go through in order to get to the development of this site. So what we did is, after the last hearing, the neighbor, Megan Lutz, made a comment, as did a number of other people, about the distance between her house and the drive-through. So we went ahead and we made another change. This is by no means set in concrete. This is to show, for illustration purposes only, what we can do within the confines of this development. What you have here is we've made the bank smaller, so it now allowed us to move the bank further over, because we cut off about 10 feet, give or take, of the size. So it stayed within this portion of the alley for our parking. And then what we did is we moved it away from, excuse me, it's the Lutz, I believe, her house, and we're able to obtain a 15-foot separation. Now, again, we know we would work with the Board of Appeal, zoning, all of the other departments to do that. So it does have the drive-through. Again, it's remote drive-through. It's not manned. It's not fast food. This is just a bank drive-through with parking adjacent. So for this committee, what I wanted to be able to illustrate is that we are constantly evolving our plan to meet the requests of both staff and the neighborhood. Initially, we wanted to use all three parcels. Staff was very adamant that we take it down to 2 parcels. A statement was made that we have the same size inside the same 3 parcels. I can assure you that with all 3 parcels, I would have a much different, and did have a much different layout. So there were a number of changes and concessions. Again, illustration purposes only. What we wanted to show you was just a design. We're not here to talk about design, but we understand that we need to set an architectural element. This also shows, just kind of perspective-wise, what we're talking about. Again, when you talk about a drive-through, we're talking a remote drive-through, and we're talking basically something that is more, again, bank-oriented, not fast food. You want to come take over? With that, I'm going to turn it over to Larry Okrent. Excuse me. Larry, here's that. Here's this. And I'll be back.
Good evening. I'm Larry Okrent, Okrent Associates, 122 South Michigan Avenue. I'll be very quick. This first illustration shows the annexation site, or I'm sorry, the site being proposed for rezoning. This is we talk about unique conditions. The unique condition here is that the longest dimension of the site, about 175 feet, adjoins the existing B1 district. The shortest dimension, only about 50 feet, is on Crawford. This is brought about by the unusual street configuration here, which departs from the gridiron plan. And in a way, this configuration suggests that the deepening of the Grosse Pointe fronting lots rather than the creation of something that has any significant relationship to Crawford. This is the zoning map. Sites are here and here. What we see in this map is that we have a B1A district that's essentially surrounded by existing residential zoning districts, R2 on the west. I hope it's not burning out. I have another one. Okay. So we have, in fact, not just this B district, but throughout Evanston, neighborhood retail districts are surrounded by neighborhoods. The separation here is just a few feet, as it is here, for example, and as it is here. And the question then becomes, how do we regulate these kinds of relationships? What does the zoning ordinance say about engaging residential and business districts? So if we imagine this lot rezoned to B1A, it doesn't alter that fundamental relationship. Yes, it brings a district closer to this house, but there's nothing about the configuration of this district which is unusual or odd. It's a logical expansion that largely depends upon the length of this, this boundary here. So actually, the Evanston zoning ordinance addresses the question of residential business separation with its yard regulations. For example, here we have the front yard on Grosse Pointe. The rear yard is here by definition. And where you have the rear yard of a B district adjoining the side yard of an R district, there's a requirement for a 15-foot setback for parking and a 25-foot setback for principal building. Similar setback requirements apply to this other unusual side yard. In this illustration, we see the parking is probably 20 feet away from the boundary. The point here is that the ordinance has decided that a reasonable degree of separation is established by these kinds of setbacks. But on this site, the opportunity exists to do much more. And so in this illustrative plan, we can see that not only is substantial separation achievable, but intervening landscape buffers can also be implanted to provide the degree of separation the adjoining homeowners are entitled to. So I think that this can all be aired out at a zoning board hearing in the special use process, and the details of the plan could follow along these lines in some fashion and achieve what the ordinance hopes to achieve with regard to this kind of separation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Louay Abuna, A-B-O-O-N-A, and I'm a traffic engineer with KLOA. I'll be very brief. A traffic study was conducted or performed for to study the impact of the proposed bank, and I'll highlight some of the findings of the study. From a trip generation standpoint, the bank is expected to generate about 600 trips on a daily basis, 300 in and 300 out. Not all the trips will be new. A lot of it will be drawn in from the existing traffic on the street system. Studies done show about 50% of those trips are passed by or diverted from the street system, so only 50% will be new or additive to the street system. The important fact that I'd like to point out is when you compare that to the gas station that was there before, the bank generates about half the amount of traffic the gas station generated. The gas stations tend to be high traffic generators throughout the day, creating a lot of conflicts in and out of the site. The gas station generated about 1,300 trips on a daily basis. From a traffic impact standpoint, the study looked at the triangle as far as the amount of traffic that goes through that intersection currently, how the intersections operate, and then what happens with the additional traffic from the bank. And what the study determined is that the impact will be very low, that the increase in delays for these intersections on an average will be less than 1 second. So in essence, it's not going to be detected by the drivers going through the intersection. From an access standpoint, the proposed site plan is an enhancement over existing conditions. Currently, the gas station has 2 access points on Grosse Pointe and 2 access points on Crawford, and then with the alley. The plan, as you have seen, calls for 1 access point on Grosse Pointe, which will be restricted to right in, right out, and 1 full access on Crawford. We looked at the design and the locations of the access drives, and we found them to be located appropriately, designed appropriately. We don't believe that there will be any impact on the flow of traffic on either road, nor on the adjoining properties, including the residential lot across the street. In fact, we did a gap study that looked at the ability of cars to turn in and out of Crawford during the rush hour, and we found that there are plentiful gaps that would allow cars to turn left from Crawford into the side and also to turn left out. And that's important to demonstrate that there will not be an impact on the Crawford traffic, particularly for the left turns. There will not be the impact that would cause the traffic to wait as those cars will be able to turn more readily. And then finally, we looked at the accident history for those intersections, and based on information provided by the city, and none of those intersections were in the top 10 as far as accident locations in the city. In fact, the intersection of Grosse Pointe and Crawford averaged only 7 accidents per year for the past 5 years. So none of these are considered high accident locations. So in all, our analysis have indicated that this is a low-impact use. It doesn't generate a lot of traffic on a peak hour basis or daily basis, and compared to what was there before, it's an improvement to the traffic operations in the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we almost done?
We're done. I just want to let you know that we do have our appraiser here, Mary Limburger, who has, as I say, testified in the past about the fact that there is no negative impact on property values. Her statistics actually are in the presentation if you'd like to see them. She, of course, is here to answer any questions, but otherwise that would conclude our presentation.
I would like to hear from the appraiser why she thinks there's no impact on the house next door.
Good evening. My name is Mary Lindberger. I'm a real estate appraiser. I've testified before, and I'm just going to briefly summarize what I've said prior. This property is located in a mixed-use area. This development area already includes several residential properties that are interfacing with commercial properties. I see no evidence that the interface of commercial and residential in this area has negatively impacted home values at all. This is a very stable area. Homeowners have been here for years. Nobody offers their home for sale, or they rarely do, and when they do offer it, it sells. So I can't see any negative impact from the juxtaposition of residential and commercial on the residential property owners. What we're talking about here is a change in situation where we are removing what the city itself has declared to be a blighted gas station and a vacant lot that adjoins it. We've heard testimony from a surrounding property owner that this lot has attracted a lot of debris, and the city itself has characterized this vacant lot as participating in the blight of the gas station. So we're talking about taking away something that's blighted and replacing it with something that's modern and clean. I guess the key issue for the adjoining property owner is clearly she is going to be next to a commercial lot when she wasn't before. And my question to answer was, does this proximity negatively impact her based on the proximity alone? And so what I did is I looked at, and I'm show you something. Can you do that?
Oh, you want to advance? Oh.
And then how do I get to the next one? Okay, all right. Okay, great, thank you very much. I had referenced this data before, but I didn't present it specifically. I have here. What I did is I looked at the townhomes that immediately adjoin the Walgreens at Dodge and Main. There's been a lot of discussion about that property. As we noted, that did involve a rezoning of a residential lot, which was adjacent to these homeowners. And what I did is I looked at what had happened to property values for the homes that are immediately adjacent to that drive-through and compared it with what has happened with property property values for homes that are in this same townhome development but further north. And the only home that I found there that has actually changed hands recently or has a sales history to it that can be analyzed is the property at 924 Dodge. It's immediately north of the drive-through. It sold in June of 1987, and then it resold in September of 2006. And it spanned the period during which time the Walgreens was developed. The Walgreens was petitioned in 1997, and I believe it opened in 1998. So this home did not sell over an extended period of time, but when it did sell, it reflected a a simple average annual increase in value of 10.6%. What I then did is I looked for other townhomes in this development that were not as proximate to the Walgreens as this was, and I found 2 other homes that had somewhat similar sales histories in terms of the time periods in which they had sold. Both of them were about 190 feet north. They're next to each other. As you'll see, one of them had a average annual appreciation in value of 11.8%, and the other had an average annual appreciation value of 12.5%. There is not an exact matchup of the sales periods. Our property that's a subject sold in 2006. The other home sold in 2003, then there's a sale in 2007. To my mind, this indicated that there was not any sort of significant valuation impact that I would apply from the proximity to the Walgreens drive-through to this home as compared with other homes that are highly similar otherwise in size and in age and in style.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'll open it up to discussion. Alderman Tendam, did you want to, are you here? Oh, there, I'm sorry. Did you want to say anything?
I'm interested in hearing the discussion tonight, of course. There have been some concerns by a couple aldermen that with regard to the text of the text amendment, the text of the map amendment, and certain exclusions from the Central Street overlay, things like that. And if that would be a better discussion at this level, at this standing committee, then I would suggest we introduce it to council and refer it back to answer those additional questions. If you think it's up to you, obviously, and if there are that many outstanding questions, I think this would be the better place to discuss it, have more interaction with the community and the applicant.
Okay. Okay, then we'll open it up to discussion from the committee. Any comments or?
Question for staff. I assume that unchanged as is, for example, a new gas station could locate in the Sicko lot, right?
Yes. I had to pause a little bit. It's the drive-through that requires a special use permit, that amendment.
Right. But if, for example, if this didn't go through and the developer wound up selling it or opening a gas station, that would be completely permissible, right?
That and a number of other by right business uses.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that would be the bank without a drive-through as well.
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me what the difference is between a drive-through and the use as a service station? I mean, what is the definition of drive-through, and why isn't a service station in that category?
A service station, by definition, is not a drive-through.
Even though cars are driving through?
Correct. So you think of, there are a number of retail services and retail uses where cars are driving in and out of the lot. So gas station's never been considered as a drive-through. So it's not been subject to that special use provision. So in this case, the overlay as it exists now allows for a gas station.
I had asked staff to give me a little bit of information before the meeting tonight. There are several banks with drive-through facilities in the 1st Ward and in the 3rd Ward. I'm not familiar with all of them outside of those 2 wards, but it seems to me that these are relatively new banking facilities, and they exist on lots that are similarly sized to the Sitco lot. There's also a couple of banks, including one that one of the residents mentioned, the First Bank and Trust facility on Central Street that actually fits in quite well with the neighborhood. So my feeling is that I'm not quite sure why the bank has to be as large as it is. It just doesn't seem to make much sense to me. If you want a drive-in banking facility, I think you could do it on a smaller footprint. The other thing is that in my ward, alleys are sacrosanct. I mean, they're very important because there are so many instances, as has been mentioned tonight, where you have actual business uses across the alley from residential. And the residential and the businesses coexist well as long as those alleys are in place. And that's not only with businesses, but also with the university as well. So I'm very sensitive to removing an alley. I'm sensitive to removing that natural delineation between business and residential. I'm very much in favor of preserving residential neighborhoods where we can. And I'm very impressed with how many people have turned out, not only in this instance, but over the years, to protect this neighborhood, which is a wonderful and affordable single-family neighborhood. I'm not convinced after 20 years of selling real estate. I'm really sorry. I absolutely disagree with you. I think the lot next door is going to be devalued. I think removing that alley, including that lot, having no natural boundary between the included lot and the rest of the residential neighborhood, I think is a mistake. And I don't think it's one that we should make. And it's certainly not one that I would support. I guess that's all I will say at the moment, but I would ask you to go and rethink your design to see if you could do something smaller. Am I right in thinking that this is about the same size as the Chase on on Central and Green Bay Road? Is this about the same size?
I don't have those figures, but we'd be glad to provide them for you.
Okay.
Which one?
On Central and Green Bay.
And
Yeah.
what about at Gulf Road and McCormick?
At Gulf Road and McCormick, I
Is
think
it
would be more compatible, I think.
Right, okay.
I can bring that back to the committee.
Alderman Fisk, I'm wondering too if I'm understanding the request, then P1, in terms of looking at the footprint as it is now, looking at just at the Cisco station, that there might be, I might be inclined to say have drive-through there if they use it on the same footprint.
Sure.
But certainly not. I think I've also heard that from the neighbors, I believe, through the emails and everything.
Mhm.
But it's just in terms of the P2
right.
is what I think is the bigger issue for me.
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
Well, first of all, when the issue all is based on changing an R district to a commercial district, business district, then I get extremely cautious and concerned. I think that any use that does that requires, number one, a text amendment, number two, a map amendment, number three, eventually, alley vacation, and number four, a trip to ZBA as a result of the text amendment. We've got the wrong location. Mm-hmm. And I could absolutely never support this. And in addition to that, it seems to me, after reading the petitions, almost every person in the 500 feet distance signed a petition in opposition of this. In a heartbeat, I would support the bank on the Sitco lot. Mm-hmm. It seems to me the most reasonable compromise. And that's about as far as I could go. One of the things we heard the developers say tonight is that we're not getting a drive-through here. All we're doing is getting a text amendment that would allow a drive-through to be a special use. But then we hear later that when we go to ZBA, they'll make adjustments so that the drive-through will be safe. So the intention is, with the text amendment, there will be an approval by ZBA for a drive-through on these two lots, but there will be some, modification and massaging of where probably the landscaping is. And I would just have to ask the bank, what would happen if you went to ZBA and ZBA said, absolutely not, you cannot have a drive-through. We're not going to approve it as a special use. It's too intense. It's this, it's that, it's the other. So that I think is where I stand. Absolutely in opposition to the way this is being presented. And second of all, I'm curious to know, did the developer purchase the property without any conditions, that this is not, your purchase of the property is not dependent on receiving the text map and ZBA approval and the alley vacation?
Would you like to answer that? At the microphone, please, and identify yourself again.
Richard Sapkin, Edgemark Development. We purchased the property
Outright.
outright.
Okay, thank you.
I had one other question for staff, which I don't know the answer to. When somebody purchases a piece of residential property and applies for a permit to demolish a house, isn't there a requirement that there be a plan or replacement or an application of some sort, or can people just tear down their house and then put up a sign saying potential development site?
The city council, I want to say about 4 or 5 years ago, passed an ordinance revision that allows for the tear down, but at a tear down price, for lack of a better word, to the Affordable Housing Fund.
That was all having to do with affordable housing.
Right.
Right, but
And had nothing to do with zoning or.
Okay, but there wasn't a requirement that someone come in order to qualify to
No,
tear
there's
down a
not.
house. Okay, I'd like to make a reference to that later. So that was my question. And I agree with Alderman Rainey. I think there's a number of things that have happened in this particular case that are very problematic, both for me on the council, as I'm thinking about how this package came to be, but also for the neighbors. The neighbors have just gone through, the Central Street planning process and have, I'm sure, participated in that with as much interest as they're participating here tonight. And just like the lakefront planning process, it takes a long time to go through these processes, and you end up with something that you hope that you can rely on. And I'm sure never in their wildest dreams did they think they would be here a couple of years later having to fight this fight. So again, I appreciate the work that the neighbors have put in, and I'm going to encourage the developer, at least from my point of view, as speaking as an individual alderman, to very much consider what you can do on that single Sitco site, which it seems to me, and neighbors can tell me if I'm wrong here, would be acceptable to you. Okay. There's the win-win, I think. Did anyone else have any comments?
Is there a motion?
There is not a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
Madam Chairman, I move that we send this back to our staff, take it off our agenda for the time being, and perhaps the developer can come back to us with an alternate plan. Because I don't see any point in vote. I think we have 3 votes. I don't know what we have. If you want to take a vote and turn this down, fine, but I really like the corner as the Chase Bank. I mean, I think it would be great.
Sure.
Looks. But So that would be my suggestion, that the motion be that we return it to staff and remove it
then
from
back
our...
to the committee.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
If the developer wishes to pursue it.
As we all know and was in the information, this requires a supermajority vote on the part of the council, so it would require 7 votes at council to pass, and I don't think those votes are there, if I'm counting heads here.
I misspoke. I should not have said that, but
Just so everyone understands that, so. Is there a second to Alderman Rainey's motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
that was, was that just for one, or did we?
I think it's the whole thing.
That
It's the
was
whole
my
thing.
intent,
Right,
yeah.
just send it all back. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
I think we ought to hold the other one into.
We're not holding it in committee.
No, we're not holding it.
No.
Bring it back to committee when they get it fixed.
Right, it's off our agenda. Or are you talking about the rental licensing?
Oh, no, I was still talking about that.
Oh. Yeah, okay. So we'll do rental licensing next time?
I'm
Okay.
focusing too much.
No, I just have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
What are we doing with
We're going to accept the report, I believe, is what we're going to do. Okay, so our item for discussion tonight is PD1, Rental Unit Licensing Committee's recommendation for consideration to amend Title V, Chapter 8 of the City Code to require the licensing of rental dwelling units. So staff recommends that the Planning and Development Committee consider and discuss the recommendations of the Rental Unit Licensing Committee. It's for discussion tonight. And obviously, City Council ought to begin in 2 minutes. And the discussion for this that has been gone on for several months, I believe, would take much longer than we have time for this evening. So Alderman Wilson, would you like to?
I just move that we accept the report and
Is there a
schedule
second?
for
There's a
discussion.
second.
Okay,
But could
Alderman Rainey, yes.
Madam Chair, I don't know if you looked at your email since we all left home, but there is an email from Mr. Handler who says that he feels that our staff violated the spirit of our promises, that all the folks who are interested would be notified. And I don't know whether we notified people who are, participating in this or not, but I'm just saying that there's a complaint.
Okay, well, we
So
will
this
make
will
sure everyone
provide
is
for the next
notified
meeting, right?
for the next P&D meeting. This will be on our agenda.
That's what we intended to do.
Oh, okay. So he thought that tonight was the night, and it's really not. Okay.
And there were 3 people on our sign-up sheet who wanted to speak to this tonight, and please come to the next meeting and speak to us at the next meeting. If you're not available, please send us something in writing. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. Thank you very much. City Council will begin in 5 minutes. Oh, the next
Someone
one?
wanted to know when the next meeting was, so
I don't know.
come
When
on
is
up,
the next
we're done.
When's the next P&D meeting?
You mean for the rental license?
Yeah,
So we can
yeah.
let you know when it is.
Yeah.
It'll be at no sooner than August 13th, but probably September 10th.
Why, oh, okay, I got it. Are you?
My sister's home was in foreclosure.
Uh-huh.
And I bought it.
Uh-huh.
This is a whole new.
When it's up, when you're up, I'm going to bring the presentation on. Yeah, I'll be sitting right there, so when you go up, I'll bring it up, and I'll leave this right over here for you. So, the mayor will be standing here.
Where's your camera?